No.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Well, I brought some flyers in the back. Oh, no. No, no, just me. Well, Jake threw this. Thank you.
That would be scary. You know, it's not a point shoot. She's reminding me. Bit of an attitude. She's for sure.
She, Miss Romney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She'd be like playing, right?
Yeah.
Just befriended the neighbor's dog.
Oh, she did.
And that thing's like this big. So she was in charge. Rocky is 108 pounds.
Yeah.
She's 48. So.
Yeah.
Rounding up some.
I'm recruiting everybody.
It's crazy. All those things like boo. That's so boo plus. I'm not false. Yeah, well, it's quieter than
But also.
I don't really know that. Yeah.
People buy houses. I specialize in broke buyers. So I'm excited to learn.
They're all broke, aren't they? Did you see I got 2 meat lovers just for you, Jake?
I love that, Jake. I only eat the top.
Without the.
Yeah, he said, he goes, get meat lovers with, without all that other crap. I said, vegetables? Yeah. Forget that. Are we ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Hello. Hello, I'm Leslie Lowry with Fairway Mortgage, same company that Todd works at here. And so he can do MHDC loans too, which is a lot of what I'm going to talk about. But today is about finding the moolah. And as we know, mostly first-time homebuyers have a problem with down payment assistance. There's money out there if you're not a first-time homebuyer. And a first-time homebuyer is defined as not owning an owner-occupied home in the last 3 years. So if you owned an investment property and didn't own your own home, you are a first-time homebuyer. Veterans get special waivers for a first-time homebuyer. If you're a veteran and you've served in the last 25 years, you are considered a first-time homebuyer even if you own a home now. So you can buy another home and take advantage of some of the lower rates that are available as a first-time home buyer. The key is if they've served in the last 25 years. So you have to make sure on that. With all the first-time homebuyer programs, all of them come with an origination fee usually. Yes, they charge more for having less money. Almost everybody does, by the way. There's income maximums. Most of your first-time homebuyer programs, you have to be a lower income. Now, there's money available for people who make too much money and are not first-time homebuyers. In the old days, and I say old days because I've been doing lending 28 years, so all my life. But in the old days, it was a finite amount of money available, and I'm talking MHDC mainly. And by the way, I teach next week at KCRAR, first-time homebuyer class for continuing ed on Thursday the 16th. It's a 3-hour class. Yeah, I don't know how full it is, but MHDC is the biggest, best down payment assistance program in our area. And the main reason for that is because of They sell mortgage revenue bonds, and nobody else does that. They don't do that in Kansas. But mortgage revenue bonds, MHDC stands for Missouri Housing Development Commission. They're a nonprofit chartered by the state and the governor, and they sell tax-free municipal bonds to investors. And the money that's earned off that funds our first-time homebuyers at fantastic rates. Just to give you an idea, the rates just went up. I won't tease you what they were, so you won't be disappointed. But now and that's one thing about a lot of realtors don't know, down payment assistance is available on conventional, FHA, VA, and USDA. A lot of realtors think it's just FHA, but it is not. But on conventional cash assistance, the rate's 6 1/4. That's basically the rate right now on regular FHA rates where you don't get any money. No, it's 6 on FHA with the cash assistance. It's 6 1/4 on conventional. We're not at 6 1/4 on rates right now. Interest rates went up yesterday a little bit, but they're great rates. The other thing about MHDC is they have a non-cash assistance too. A lot of realtors don't know that. If you have your own money, a buyer or getting a gift or whatever, right now on conventional, you can get 5.875. That's a great rate if you've got your own money. And FHA, it's 5.625. So you can get rates in the 5s with MHDC. But there are a lot of different programs. Did you have a question? You look like you're, no. Okay, never mind. So there's a lot of different programs around with down payment assistance. But MHDC is the biggest and the best in terms of the rates. Kansas, not so much. Their rates right now, and it's because of the mortgage revenue bond, it's the process that they don't use that we do in Missouri. And in Kansas, they do what's called premium pricing. If you've ever had a lender pay closing costs, that's premium pricing. That's where they raise the interest rate some or more, depending on how much the buyer needs to generate the revenue. So in Kansas, they do the same thing. So it's not even nearly competitive. To give you an idea, right now in Kansas, to get a 3% down payment assistance, which is not going to cover an FHA loan, it's only going to cover conventional, and it doesn't even cover conventional because there's an origination fee on there too. So really it's just a net gain of 2. Right now that rate is 7.75 on conventional, as opposed to our 6 1/4 here with down payment assistance in Missouri. So and 2% grant in Kansas, which is only a net 1% down payment, is 7 1/4. So it's almost unusable in Kansas. But I have some new programs that will cover Kansas, because that program, until rates come down, Kansas isn't going to be very good. But there are some other programs. But with MHDC, they also have, there's First Place, and that's where there's income guides of 1 to 2 people is about 111,000. So that's tough. If you got 2 working people, 2 career people, that's about, 55,000 in income each. That's tougher. But 3 or more is now 128. These just went up. It was 103 and 118. So we're at 111 for the Kansas City metro area, basically the 10-county area, and then 128 for 3 or more. So in the olden days of MHDC, right now it's constant funding, so there's always money. It didn't used to be that way. Back in 10, 15 years ago, there would be a finite amount of money, and we would have to scramble to make reservations for buyers, and inevitably you'd be hung up with not getting the reservation in and then running out of money. And so in those days, they didn't have Next Step, which was money available if you needed it. So if you're not a first-time home buyer or you make too much money. And so back in the day, if I had somebody in and, they made a little bit too much money, on MHDC program without the next step program for non-first time home buyers or for people who make too much money. You're just out. At least now I can slide somebody over. And if they're close on income, I'm not going to quote rate until I can analyze all the income. So they're not as bummed out about not getting the lower rate. But it's constant funding all the time for either the first place or the next step loan. But there's other down payment assistance programs available throughout the city. You can combine Missouri Housing, MHCC, with other municipality grants, like there's City of Independence. I didn't call them before coming here. It was kind of a last minute thing to see if they have money, but they usually run out around this time of year. It goes pretty quick. But there's a new grant, by the way, over in Independence for $10,000. That's new, and they do have funding. There was another City of Independence grant for about like 3%. Yeah, Jake.
Can we market those like on our listings? So I've got one in Independence coming up, it's 225.
Yes,
How do I
yes.
market that?
Well, I can call first to make sure they got money. But you should, on every listing, by the way, the max listing price to qualify for Missouri Housing is $510. Yeah, $510, $939 to be exact, but $510. So any listing you have on that's $510 or under should be, there is a drop down, will sell bond. No one uses it. But a lot of realtors don't even know about it. And so that's why it's important. And that's why I teach over at KCRAR, is because you're the first contact with buyers. So it's important that you understand what's available, the resources for them. So there is a lot of money and more money coming out all the time.
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
To answer your question, if I'm hearing this correctly, is that what we would check, conventional FHA, whatever, and then we'll.
Bond, yeah, bond. So you might get some calls then from agent bond. What's that?
Yeah.
It's the old name for MHTC is bond money. And why it came because of the mortgage revenue bonds on how they raise the money is how that happened. But I believe the drop down is bond. But yeah, there's down payment assistance available. No,
So that's good.
absolutely.
And it's a great program, but I never know as a listing agent how you said that it was available.
Yes. Well, and as a listing agent, that's one thing you'll definitely want to ask your seller is if they bought the home using down payment assistance. Because now there is it's a forgivable second lien, just so you know, the down payment assistance is 4% of the loan amount. So for those of you doing the math saying, well, conventional is 3% and FHA is 3.5%, it pays for some of the closing costs. Don't ever say that, because it doesn't. And realtors who have said that, buyers think that it does pay for the down payment. Because even if you say it pays a portion, they'll hear it pays for closing costs. So I tell buyers all the time, because this is kind of a misnomer with buyers, is that when you buy a house, there's three things you pay for. There's the down payment, there's closing costs, and then there's escrows for taxes and insurance. So on your down payment assistance programs, it pays for the down payment. It does not pay for closing costs and escrows. So if you're using down payment assistance, your buyer needs to have, $7,000 to $9,000, depending on the price point, of their own money, or you need to negotiate it. But buyers hear down payment assistance all the time. I get calls every single day with people who don't even have enough money in the bank for earnest deposit, appraisal, and inspections, thinking that it pays for everything. So you want to be clear there in case you need to negotiate closing costs, which we still can right now. It's fading, not every house, but you can. But all the down payment assistance programs, generally speaking, have income maximums. I just found one last week that I was just rooting around looking for some more money, some more moolah. And Jake had a client in a low price point. And there's hardly anything in Kansas. It's like a desert over there. It's a money desert over there. So I was looking around, it's like, oh my God, Habitat for Humanity. $13,000. So I give him a call and they go, yeah, it's coming out Monday. And this was last week. I'm like, oh my God, wow, and so I'd never signed up for it before. But it made a difference because, Jake was trying to find a house for 225 in Kansas, kind of tough. So this allowed the buyer to buy 231. So and then I found out though, with the Habitat of Humanity, there are 13,000, they only had 17 loans available. I'm like, yikes. So I'm poised at 9 a.m., trying to make the reservation. I did make a reservation prior to your buyer because it was a single mom. Sorry, our buyer is not a dad. So she was going to be homeless, so I'm doing hers and then I do your and then I needed title company. I'm texting Jake, title company now, now, and I'm putting in the reservation. I think we got the money, but I won't know for a few days. It'll be like 5 days, but with only 17 loans, I was trying to type as fast as I can. Which reminded me, it was like the old days of MHDC when we're trying to beat the clock and because it's only a finite amount of money and my God, you got to get it in for that realtor, you're fired and, so with MHDC, there is the next step program, but you're not going to be very excited about the rates though. So with buyers who make too much money over the guideline, or not a first-time home buyer. Then on cash assistance on conventional, it's 7.625. Ouch. You can refinance. And then FHA, VA, USDA is 7.375. But at least there's money available, okay? It's better than not buying a house, right? So rates go up, rates go down. That's what I tell buyers. You refinance. By the way, the down payment assistance with MHDC is recorded as a second lien. It is a forgivable second lien, but the forgiveness happens years 5 through 10. It's at 0% interest, so it never grows. There is no payment. You can sell or refinance at any time. But if you sell or refinance within the first 10 years, depending on what year you do it, you have to pay some or all of it back. A lot of realtors, go ahead. Yes, depending on the year you sell. So before year 5, you're paying all of it back. So I have had a few people with a change of life that had to sell within 12 months. And I thought, oh my God, they're probably going to have to bring money to the table. No, they didn't. And I was surprised. Unless appreciation rates go down, even selling in 12 months, yeah, they walked away with $4,000, I think, on a low priced home, 225 in Plattsburgh or something. But still, it's the magic of appreciation and amortization on the loan and the fact that the down payment assistance is at 0%. So I tell buyers all the time, yeah, you have to pay it back if you sell within 10 years. But here's the thing, it never grew. It's year 5 and you still own only 5,000, but guess what did grow? The value of your home. And you needed it to buy. So what the heck, you know what I mean? Again, it's better than not buying a home.
They buy it back 5 years later.
Well, if you sell within the first 10 years, so the forgiveness on the down payment assistance is years 5 through 10. So if you sell in that time period, it depends what year, it'll be prorated.
5 to 10 is prorated.
At 20% per year, by the way.
0 to 5, it's 100%.
Yes, yes. It actually, I was just talking to Todd over there at Fairway. It used to be 100%. You could refinance and there was no holding period at all until loan officers churned those loans and cheated the state out of the income, because it's the income off those loans that pays back the investors who generated the money so that we could sell homes with it. So MHDC said no more of that. Yeah, there's a holding period now, years 5 through 10. There's other down payment assistance programs in town. Go ahead.
not make it payable back?
No. No. So yeah, 5 through 10, it's forgiven. And it doesn't grow and there's no payment. But yeah, but as a listing agent, you want to find out if your seller used it for your net proceeds sheets, you know, and you can call MHDC and ask and find out what would be owed. So you can do that. But there's other down payment assistance programs around, like Commerce Bank. They have a program. It's 100% loan conventional. The income guides are a lot less. So one person is 57,000, two people 66, three people 74, and four people's 82. But there's no PMI. It's a conventional mortgage. But I think the rate's 7.5. So some banks around will have, there's something called community reinvestment. And the federal government looks at lenders, banks specifically, not mortgage lenders. We're a mortgage lender, Fairway, not a bank. We do service our own loans though now. But with banks, they have to go through the scrutiny of the federal government, and they better be lending to all peoples. And if they're discovered that they don't have very minority loans in their portfolio, then they have to generate programs to make it so. And so Commerce Bank right now has, 100% financing, conventional, but you have to be on those lower programs. In fact, the person I reserved before our buyer, Jake, they actually had gone to Commerce Bank. One I didn't know, but one of the stipulations is you have had to have rented within 6 months of the real estate contract. And she was 8 months, and they said out. But MHDC was a better loan anyway. Plus, I got her the 13,000. So yesterday, so that worked out. But there's only 17 loans, although they tell me more money's coming. I'm going to ask about that. There's in Kansas, there is another down payment assistance program called Kansas Housing Resources Corporation, HOME, and it's again the lower income brackets for Leavenworth and Wyandotte counties mainly. I do have an FHA loan with down payment assistance that's not tied geographically. By the way, on those lower incomes, there's geographical areas as well. Like you can't buy in Johnson County with it, or anywhere up north or Lee Summit. It's usually city, it's particular zip codes, Wyandotte County, Leavenworth, your lower priced homes, lower income areas where those usually apply. I do have an FHA loan right now that offers down payment assistance anywhere with whatever income, but the rate's like 7.5, with rates coming down. But if you have to have the money, you have to have the money, right? Now, on that one, it's a fully forgivable one. You can refinance anytime. So I just say, buy the home and then go refinance. Of course, I tell buyers that anyway. Especially buyers who have a little payment shock on what rates have been. I will always show a buyer, look, when rates go to 6, this will be your payment. If we get to 5.5, it's this. So they can see, it doesn't have to be forever with this rate. So, I have a new program. This is my flyer here. I am #1 only in the state of Missouri for this, for MHDC loans, only because I'm old and been doing it a long time. But I've written more loans than anybody, over 400 loans, I think, or something like that. But I have a new down payment assistance program. It's also FHA. I haven't done one. I have some reservations about it, but I thought I would bring the flyer and tell you about it. It provides up to 3.5% up to a maximum of $13,000. So that's a max sales price for down payment of about $275. Or no, $375, sorry. Up to $13,000, but you're financing in solar panels. I don't know a lot about solar panels, so I haven't gotten real excited. I guess if you have a buyer who's very environmentally attuned maybe. One thing I don't like about this program is that there's an 8-hour HUD class you have to take. And there was an 8-hour class yesterday because we were originally taking our buyer FHA because he was payment sensitive. So for the lower rate, I was going FHA until I was online making the reservation and they wanted home buyer education. Well, there wasn't time for the 8-hour HUD program. So I called our buyer real quick and said, here, take this test, send me the certificate. I'm making the reservation now. So I changed it to conventional, but with the $13,000 and lowering the loan amount, it put it into the range that he needed anyway, thank God. But yeah, there's an 8-hour education. It's hard for me to get a buyer to do an hour. So I'm thinking, yeah, right, this is going to be tough. But if you want the money, you want the money. Did you have a question? No, no. Well, it's your typical mortgage guidelines. There's no overlays for that. So, and that's one thing about these programs. A loan officer has to analyze qualifying income versus total household income. Let me explain. So, you might know that with using certain types of income like commission and overtime, the lender wants 2 years. And so if you don't have 2 years, it's not used to qualify. On MHGC, it is all income, DoorDash. So there's DoorDash on the bank statements. It all counts. So I have to look at total income and then qualifying income to make sure that, of course, they qualify for the home and they don't make too much money for the program. Well, typically in mortgage guidelines, if you have job gaps like that, typically underwriting will want that person on the job for 6 months for continuity and stability of income. So if you have a job gap of 60 days or more, typically that's what you're going to find in underwriting is wanting them on the job longer. But by the way, speaking of that, it's a big myth, first-time homebuyers especially have a myth, it must be on the internet somewhere, that they have to be on the job 2 years. Part-time you do, yeah. But a lot of first-time homebuyers think any job, you have to be there 2 years. And maybe they get that because the mortgage loan application does encompass a 2-year history of what they've been doing. But I tell buyers, you can be fresh out of college with no job at all. We're putting your college degree on the application and in terms of explaining what you've been doing for the last 4 years or 2 years. We only have to go back 2 years. But you can be straight out of college and get a loan, assuming it's in your area of expertise, or we try to loop it in any way we can connect it for the mortgage loan. But the other myth first-time homebuyers have is that you have to put 20% down. So that's something as a realtor that you should send out there to the media. But back to this solar panel, by the way, it's financed in. So, you know, solar panels can be $30,000, $40,000. So it's added into the loan, into the payment, but the home doesn't have to appraise with the solar panels in it. It can be just at sales price. So you get a $13,000, plus you get a tax credit of 30% of the value of the solar panels from the federal government. So that's kind of nice. But again, there's no income on this, 620 credit score, whereas MHDC is 640, by the way, 640 credit score. You know, I don't know, like they're mostly 620 now, unless it's MHDC, like the Commerce Banks. I think they go down to 600 actually. But they'll run out of money because it's Community and Reinvestment Act is why they're offering it. It's limited in area, it's limited in income. And like I just found, they have an overlay of having to have rented within the last 6 months of the contract of whenever the contract was written. But there's a lot of money everywhere, different places. You just have to go get it and go look for it. We're kind of blessed here because these incomes are generated by the Census Bureau and we benefit from Johnson County, Kansas, a wealthy county that feeds into our numbers, if you will, for qualifying for down payment assistance. So that's why our income is 111.4 for 1 to 2, and 3 or more is 128. Whereas like St. Joe, Missouri is 96,000 household income. Now, it's not necessarily household income, it's married household income. It used to be household income, where I'd have, 2 singles applying, and I'd come back and say, God, you make a little bit too much money. I'm so sorry for this rate. The next day I'm getting a call, we broke up. I hate him. And so even the executive director at MHDC would say, we've got some of the loneliest borrowers in this program. So they decided finally, after this is a common occurrence, that they said, okay, no more if they're single or we count both incomes, unless they're both on the loan, then that both incomes do count. But if they're just dating or engaged, but another person's going to live there, it's just the person on the loan. You don't have to count their income. But if they're married, you do. So with a married couple, I have to get the person who's not on the loan, their income, and find out all income of the home. You can be separated. I have one right now I'm doing, where they haven't lived together, a married couple, for 6 years or more. And with MHDC, I don't have to count her income if I can show they've been separated at least 6 months. And so, but they have to sign a waiver. So they waive their marital rights to the home and then prove they haven't been together for 6 months. So that's a problem if you're married and you haven't seen your spouse in a long time. And I've had this happen where they're like, I don't know where they're at. And I'll say, that's a problem because there's some paperwork if you want to use this down payment assistance that I need them. Not any other loan, but this one. You can buy a house without your spouse, but on this one you can't. We need some forms signed. And so that can be a problem. So just so you know, because Todd reminded me of it, and of course I teach about it, on the MHDC there's a recapture tax. And it's language required by IRS. So anytime, the IRS is like, we're happy to help. You guys can sell, tax-free municipal bonds to generate income for lower income people to buy homes. We're all happy with that. But if they sell within 9 years and they make too much money and they make a profit on the home, we want our money back. So a lot of lenders are negative against the program because of that. I can tell you in 25 years of me doing these loans, I've only had one instance where, first of all, the recapture tax is not recorded. It's necessary IRS language. So it would only be discovered in an audit of your federal taxes if you made too much money. But so 3 things have to apply for the recapture tax. You sell before 9 years. You make a profit on a home. Those 2 are likely to happen. And then the third thing is that you make too much money. So there's the income guideline at the time you buy the home, but with MHDC, it goes up every year. So like 111 right now is the base for 1 to 2. On the recapture tax schedule, it'll go up to like 125 or 130. It's like 20% more. And that's usually where the catch is, unless you marry, which is the instance that happened to me. One person out of 25 years called and said, hey, I got married and we're getting ready to sell the house. And so I said, looked at their income. Yeah, you do make too much money. Here's how you solve that. File separately this year on your taxes, and that way you're okay in case you get an audited. Again, you're only going to pay if you get audited. So there's the recapture tax, but it almost never applies, never applies. Does anybody have any questions?
You say we've got something under contract, say it's 200,000, appraisal comes in at 195. Now we need to go 5 above appraisal to keep it like in the deal. If we apply for this and use that money to pay for the over appraisal value?
Well, MHCC, they changed their guidelines on that. It used to be, it had to appraise out or you couldn't use the money at all. But in 22, when it was so competitive and you couldn't hardly get a home, and there was 20 offers on everything, you know, we berated MHCC basically and said, you got to come off this, man. People aren't able to buy homes. They have to offer more. They ain't getting it. So they finally relented. It'll be up to 6% of appraised value that you can use. Good question though, Jake, but only up to 6% above appraised value. MHCC also just changed their guidelines, which we berated them for because of this new NAR ruling, where MHCC still had it that if the buyer paid commission, they didn't qualify. They just changed that as well. So they can. But I do all types of loans. Basically, the only type of loan I don't do is construction of perm loans. We're getting that product. But I'm known as a first-time homebuyer specialist, and that's why I teach down at KCRAR for these programs. So you can always call and ask me questions. Anybody got any questions?
Do you have business cards?
I do. Back by the pizza, and I got flyers back there. Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
You said there was the MHTC and then there's the next steps.
Right. So next step is MHCC loan products for people who make too much money that
So
can't.
it's not first-time home buyer, like,
Yeah, you don't have to be a first-time home buyer. In other words, you could have owned a home in the last 3 years.
you
Let's
said
say,
those rates are kinda high.
well, yes. Well, on the cash assistance with conventional, it's 7.625. Same, 4%. 4%. I did one last November with a repeat client who got divorced and so didn't have any money from the sale of the home. Plus he used his assets to fight for custody too. But so yeah, and he closed at 8%. So I need to call him and refinance him, by the way. Thanks for helping me remember. And he'll have to pay back, although I need to look at appreciation to see that there's enough money to roll that in. On government, on next step, not being a first-time home buyer, the rate is on FHA, VA, USDA, 7.375. Just a word of warning on VA loans. There is the down payment assistance available. All these loans with down payment assistance, usually from every single lender, are going to have an additional origination fee in addition to their fee. So there's a little bit more fees. But with a VA loan, you may or may not know, they're a little persnickety about fees for their veterans. So if you charge an origination fee on a VA loan, VA is going to come back and say, you can't charge this, this, and this. They're called unallowables. And so in the case of VA, just so you know, with down payment assistance, you have to negotiate $1,500 to $2,000, depending on the price point, for seller pays in order to use that loan. But you can call anytime, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and lunch. You're welcome.
The other ones.
I think that one yesterday. No, that one was on the main road. This one was still there, but I had Abby.
What?
Do you do USDA land funds? Tony Brand, or Carl said he does.
No, we don't do straight land.
Okay.
Yeah, it has to have a house on it. That's the other loan we don't do.
I have
Straight
got him
land.
To do a USDA land loan, and I'm not really finding a lot of information right now.
Yeah, you might want to call the USDA office direct.
Yeah, that's what Todd said, that probably USDA directly,
Yeah,
because I've never heard of a USDA.
so he wants to build, you mean?
No, it's farming.
Oh, yeah.
And I've never heard
That's
that.
gonna, yeah, that's a total different, that's not a mortgage lender. I mean,
Okay.
typically mortgage
Yeah,
lenders
I've
have
never
have
heard
to
of
have a
anything like
house.
this, and I got my first phone call on it, and I'm like,
Is this your listing?
yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Well, yeah, you could call them direct to see what they
I'm
got.
Jen, by the way.
Oh,
I think
hi,
you
Jen.
met Jen Thompson.
Yes, nice to meet
We
you.
talked to the phone a lot. I told-
Okay. Who do we have?
Jake Kenyon. I think it's in Jake over to you. And I had somebody else I'd sent over there too.
Okay, thank you. Are they still looking? Haven't followed up. Haven't followed up in a minute.
Hit and miss.
I need to dig through. It's so nice to
Yeah.
meet you. Let me get your card. I have my cards in the back. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That's right. Finding the moolah. I think Garrett got the money.
Good.
I have, yeah, because they asked for a correction to my input.
Oh, good.
So I called today to see if they could tell me if it was all reserved or not, and if I got in or not. But they said, well, we'll have to get back to you. The guidelines say we'll get back to you within 5 days, so.
We have inspections on Friday on that. We're just gonna do a clear scope and then 5 point on that.
So worst case scenario, I guess, if he didn't get the money, I'd flip it back to FHA.
Yeah.
Well, once I get awarded, I might ask him if I can change it to FHA,
And
and if they'll let me or not. But then he'd have to take the 8-hour HUD class. Right. I don't know if they'll let me change it out, but I'll find out. I haven't told him yet. I wasn't gonna call him with everything until I found out for sure.
here's my buddy James. He works with a lot of buyers,
Hi,
so.
you're on the team?
His dad's.
I'm on my dad's.
Okay.
So he works with a lot of buyers, kind of in that situation. Young guy works with a lot of young guys.
Cool.
A lot of good information.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
A lot of people that don't have a lot of money, or we're getting bidding for someday.
Everybody likes Jake.
Well, how did you and Jake?
Well,
Oh.
through a transaction, through a transaction, like I meet all realtors.
Transaction through hell. Oh my God.
Oh, I forget which one.
That was the
No.
one with you had, I think, the buyers pre-approval on the one out on Maple. And